Welcome YouTube fans. This is a video I recorded because I could not find the specific help I needed to replace the belt on my Honda self-propelled mower. This is a very specific video for the model HRX217VLA and the specific serial number from 2200001 through 2370000. Confirm the model number and serial number before you apply this. You can also double check things at the Honda website, but there are no specific instructions I could find there for belt replacement. So before you start, follow all the instructions in the user manual, understand basic repair methods, use common sense. By the way, you follow these instructions at your own risk. Make sure you disconnect the spark plug. You don't want to accidentally fire up the engine and maybe lose some precious body parts in the process. Make sure there's little or no fuel in the tank. Turn the fuel valve to off. Tighten the fuel cap and the oil fill cap. And make sure you have a torque wrench. You will need this for the last step. There is no other way to do the final step. So first, get a piece of wood to block the blade in place so you can loosen the mounting bolts for the blade. To remove the blades, the bolts, in my case, I had to use a reinforcement bar. You could use a proper breaker bar. It's probably better. This shows a view with the blades removed. And this is with the left rear wheel. The mower's laying on its right side. So the top wheel, the top rear left wheel is removed. And in this view, the screw has already been removed. This shows the screw being removed with the washer beneath it. And this is a view from the other side of that screw. There's a very special nut in place for that screw to connect with. It's got a square plate and extruded threads. More on that later. With that special nut removed from the slot in the plastic, you can now get in there with a screwdriver and a few light taps with a hammer. You can raise that screw sleeve up slightly enough to grab with a pair of pliers. This is the screw with the washer, the sleeve, and the special nut assembled, so you can view the whole thing. From underneath, you can see a square plate. There's a carriage bolt. You just see the rounded head. And if you look inside the ribs, you might see a screw, a 12mm screw as well. You're not going to loosen these from this side. Now, open up the rear chute, prop it open with a spring clamp. Works very well. Now we can go inside the rear chute to access the nuts for the screw through the ribs that I just showed you, and also the nut for the carriage bolt. I believe it's a 12mm and 10mm socket for both of these. On assembly, when you reassemble, you have to make sure that the screw goes through this metal arm, which we'll show later. So the carriage bolt details, you can see the loosened carriage bolt head and the carriage bolt, the square plate, the washer, and the locking nut assembled for reference. Now we're going to remove the collars. There are 2 screws that have cutouts. You do not loosen those or touch those. On this collar on the right-hand side, in this case, there are 2 long bolts that mount directly into the engine block. Here are the plates removed with the 4 short screws and the 1 plate with the 2 long screws. When you reassemble this, make sure you thread these in carefully You don't want to strip threads in the engine block. Again, the collars are moved and the view without the collars in place. These collars hold this plastic ring for the mulching attachments. Now we're going to pry open that plastic shield. Reach in there with your fingers. You have to work it a little bit to get it off. Now you're going to see a steel plate that is simply resting on a hole over this shaft. You want to remove that plate and get in underneath that with a flat tip screwdriver or other prying device and gently work from one side, prying up that side with a screwdriver and your hands on the other end of that metal arm, and work that loose until you get the metal arm off, and then you can see the pin through the shaft that connects with those keyways. Now we're going to remove the pin just by pushing on one side with a flat tip screwdriver to get it halfway off. You can remove the rest away with a pair of pliers. Now we can reach behind that shaft and pry the plastic shield off. This ribbed section has to slide out. This is where the special nut and the sleeve were. This is where that special 12mm screw comes through. If this screw comes out from inside the ribbing, make sure you locate that, and you may have to push it back in on assembly. I had to tap mine in with a pry bar and a couple taps of a hammer to get it through. Here's a view of the belt mounted. This is the incorrect routing. Don't route your belt this way. It goes behind that arm. Now, the next part involves prying the pulley, large pulley section, so that you can loosen the belt. This is very dangerous. Make sure you use an assistant. Here we had an extended pry bar. And you need to keep your fingers very safe. Don't put your fingers in a bad position in case the pry bar slips and the tension is returned onto the belt with your fingers in the way. Also, the mower can slip, so make sure you got a secure setup when you do this. Now for reassembly, after the belt's reconnected, first thing to do is to make sure you remount that special nut. It slides into a slot, and you can confirm the hole alignment. The hole should be centered from the opposite side. And the last step on assembly is to use a torque wrench to correctly tighten the blade mounting bolts. Failure to do this can cause extreme injury. Your blade can crack, or it can come loose during operation and go flying off and severely injure someone. Make sure you read your user manual for the correct torque settings. I hope this was useful for you. If so, give me a like and any feedback. Thanks.